Greetings, Guardians. My name is Bife here. So sorry about the echoey room. I moved recently, and I'm just still setting up the last fundamentals in the room, and lots of that includes things like soundproofing. So this will be echoey. It will not be like this in the future. It will be very different. So don't worry about that for the moment. Let's think about what's right in front of us, namely this Witch Queen Vidoc, Destiny 2 Light in the Darkness, which is telling us a lot about Witch Queen, a lot about Season of the Risen, and of course contains spoilers if you want to go in completely blind to everything, including what's going on with the new season. So don't let that go ahead and spoil you if you do believe it to be spoilers. Turn all of that off right now, and I'd also suggest getting off of social media and getting off of YouTube. On that note, if you didn't want spoilers, why are you here? What do you do? Leave! Respectfully, please. Get yourself out of here. You need to leave right now. We're going to go ahead and discuss and break down everything we see in this trailer. I'm doing this live as I usually do with these kind of things now, and as a result, there is no script. It's going to be one of those moments where if I waffle, my apologies. That's just the way it is. Anyway, here we are. Lo and behold, it's the stuff. So let's go ahead and get ready and go ahead and watch along on YouTube real quick. I'll be pausing this intermittently to talk about what we see, and hopefully it's something that we can all enjoy.
I know what you're wondering. What is true?
Okay, so let's start immediately with the big one. Clearly this is a hive ship. Clearly this is Savathûn's hive ship of some sort, based on the fact that it has got that kind of hive design architecture, but in that new Lucent Brood white. I would not be surprised if this is the mechanism by which you access Savathûn's throne world. Keep in mind that the way that you can access the throne world of various other hive gods tends to be through gateways, specific entry points. We saw this with Crota's throne world. For example, take a look at the Crota's End raid, where you would actually go through the gateway and the keyhole at the very bottom of the Hellmouth, and you would then end up within the Oversoul throne, which was Crota's throne world. You also had this on the Dreadnought with Oryx, where you would actually enter into the deeper words are hard. Enter into the deeper reaches of the Dreadnought by using the Court of Oryx and properly accessing it in full, instead of just fighting whatever came out of the other side. I imagine this ship is a similar kind of conduit. It being here on Mars maybe has some other relevance to the nature of the light. We saw in previous instances that it was actually listed as being above what looked like a cradle. This is in a previous trailer, the nature of which I'm not 100% sure which one it is. I want to say that this was the Game Awards trailer. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. Either way, point being, this is above a structure that is created by light, and I would be completely unsurprised if that has some relevance to this.
And what is false?
The Witch Queen is an unsettling mystery. Our biggest foe, Savathûn, has our grandest tool, the light.
It's paying off narrative threads that we planted way back in Destiny 1.
I'm here to protect humanity.
How do we stop this?
The stakes in the universe are rising, and it's the greatest challenge that we've ever faced.
So something I actually did want to point out, because this actually, we do see later on, it kind of goes back to this meeting that we have in here, but everyone is here in this meeting. We see a frame of it later, and I believe the total cast of characters is Eris, Zavala, Saladin, as you can see in the background there, Ikora, you, and a few other important Guardians here and there. Anna Bray is there too, if I'm not mistaken. So it seems like they're casting a really wide range of characters for the Witch Queen's campaign, and potentially for the season that is attached to it. Really quick note on that front, whilst the season does diverge a little bit from the main campaign, it's very much been confirmed that the season for Witch Queen runs alongside Witch Queen's narrative, and that is a first. Season of the Hunt did not do this back in the days of Beyond Light, so that's very exciting. Whilst there was a kind of parallel-ish story with the Season of the Undying back in Shadowkeep, it was also very much the case that when you actually sat down and looked at what the Season of the Undying was, it was a very separate nebulous Vex threat that you could find within the Black Garden. It really wasn't quite the same. Forsaken was a bit of an aberrant one because it's one of those moments where it was still attached to the old manner of Destiny, where seasons didn't really truly exist. Season of the Outlaw, which is what it was called, and Forsaken were kind of one and the same. Anyway, important, cool opening cinematic stuff. I figured it was worth talking about that.
The stakes in the universe are rising, and it's the greatest challenge that we've ever faced.
We're shedding that dogma of light equals good, darkness equals bad. Really entering the mists and trying to discern what's in front of us and what's lurking just underneath this.
Okay. Whilst the words from the narrative team throughout this entire Vidoc give me so much confidence, because, again, they seem to always be hitting the correct beats with this, no way no one saw this Vidoc and knew I was doing a video and didn't think I was going to pause at this moment. This moment where we see 3 worm gods rising out of an ocean which, by the way, also
trying to discern what's in front of
here in this moment, this island is the same across both scenes. And we also see this in Savathûn's throne world in some of the other trailers. You can see this in the first trailer, which I believe is the gameplay reveal that we had for Witch Queen way back when Witch Queen was first revealed. And that's really cool, because this means that this is probably something within Savathûn's mind that's a memory. Now, someone sent me something on Twitter earlier, which makes me really wonder what's going on here. And I think this freeze frame here, with Ikora and this placid sea here and everything, and in particular this break in the clouds, gives us probably one of the most important clues as to what this is. I think this is a memory of Fundament. The original home world, well, not exactly original home world, but the origin world of the Krill, who were eventually turned into the Hive. And the reason I say that is because this is a lot of moons. Fundament is a planet that is supposedly a gas giant with a ocean of some sort on its surface and massive layers of clouds. And you know, this could be pretty nebulous. This could even be a scene on Earth if you really put it that way. But Earth doesn't have 4 moons. Fundament has 52, and in particular there's a very key moment in the history of the Books of Sorrow and the story of the Hive known as the syzygy. A syzygy is an alignment of astral bodies. It's literally when things just line up. And the syzygy in the context of Fundament and the Books of Sorrow is when these moons line up, and then suddenly you have a moment where a god wave is created. That is huge because it means doom for the Krill, and it's basically one of the major reasons why Oryx and the Hive actually get created. It's because Oryx, back when Oryx was not Oryx, back when Oryx was Orush, goes ahead and basically makes this pact with the worm gods, which again, you then see in this later scene. Wow, it's terrible frame by frame. There we go. Yeah, just rising out of the ocean here. All of them here in this moment. It's just like, yeah. So you have this moment where you just remember that Savathûn's throne world is basically this embodiment of her memory and her mind. There's even a bit later in this particular Vidoc where the devs talk about how there are some parts of her mind that are changing as she becomes closer to the light, and there are other parts that she's neglecting and sort of pushing out of her main sort of, you know, strata, etc. This is one of these moments where I think she is literally replaying a memory of sorts, or at very least is trying to offer that perception. The alternative to this, something which maybe this is instead, would be something a bit more present. Do note that in this scene, you see 3 worm gods here. 1, 2, 3. There are only 3 worm gods left, as best we know. Those 3 worm gods are Aya, and Yul. Yul being probably the greatest amongst the 3, considering that Yul was kind of posturing to eat Arca, implies that if this is a current moment in the scene, then these worms are probably furious at Savathûn, and this is some kind of moment at which the narrative for the Hive starts to turn. Remember again, the worm gods themselves are directly aligned with the darkness as best we know, so this is a pretty significant moment and a pretty significant scene. And my god, I'm so glad we finally get this in front of us without any qualms or without any questions. We just get to see some cool action like this in a story context. One last thing, the fact that Ikora is seeing this, that tells me quite simply that you and her are probably going to be doing some adventuring into Savathûn's mind as you're exploring the throne world, which makes some sense, to be honest, because, you know, this is one of those moments at which you were going to be exploring inside of the throne world and therefore inside of her mind. So maybe by looking into this moment, there is a little more insight that we get, and it makes it seem as though the personal story developed here, alongside Ikora, is going to be central to the Witch Queen.
What's in front of us and what's lurking just underneath the surface.
What is your truth now?
There are a lot of bombshells in the Witch Queen narrative. And that's just scratching the surface of what we're going to get into this year.
Small. Let's let that continue. Small note, that's actually Ikora's ship. Just a little small note. Each of the Vanguard members has a very customized kind of ship of the Arcadia jump class type, and this is Ikora's.
Witch Queen.
Okay, one more small note. This is Mars, and Mars doesn't typically look like this. The light is clearly rising to the center in a very similar way to Io. And so that makes me wonder whether that's thanks to it being sort of like cut off by the darkness and whatnot. Because, I don't know, the light was starting to sort of flee from the surface of Io, and we could tell that thanks to the quest that we did way back in the day to get the ruinous effigy. We actually gathered some of those clusters of light back in the Season of Arrivals. So, very interesting to see. I wonder if there's a greater purpose to all of this.
Queen and Season of the Risen is chapter 1 and the beginning of the end for the Light and Darkness saga.
We're really getting to the core of what it means to be a guardian. We are looking at and asking big questions about the light and darkness.
We have a big bad that we've been anticipating for a really long time coming back in the form of Savathûn.
Savathûn's had a hand in most of the major conflicts that we've been involved with.
Reminder, Julian Ardan and Liz Baker, I think it was. So sorry, I don't think I've actually heard of Liz before, but cool, awesome. They are completely correct when they say that Savathûn has had a hand in practically every major conflict in some way or another. There are some ways in which it's very notable and direct. So sorry, that's the second time I've had a bone crack. Yeah, no, just... Oh, wow. Goodness. Anyway, yeah, some of the points at which the conflict is really obvious on display in the game right now. The Curse on the Dreaming City is the most straightforward example of that. Moments of revelation that we would later see in later expansions, such as Shadowkeep. Some of that is directly tied into her and what she did to the hive there. The fact that the hive on the moon even rose up in the first place is thanks to her machinations. She basically set them up to fail. So, yeah, very devious on that front. She has had some kind of influence on practically every expansion, and in most seasons, she's been doing something. Of course, the most recent and the most obvious of the different points at which she had a big impact was actually the destruction of the factions and the attack on the Botsa district in the city at the end of the season of the Splicer. So, yeah, big story notes here.
Heard about Savathûn for years and just bits and pieces, and then like you see it slowly building over seasons until we come to this huge critical point.
Savathûn's no longer just someone you hear about.
She's not just interfering in little ways. She's now ready to take center stage.
Slate. 1, 2, 3.
Savathûn, she's larger than life. We wanted to make her feel imposing and very regal and dancing through motion in some way.
The light offers us a fresh start.
She's very manipulative. She is very ethereal, but she also has like that creepiness to her as well.
She promised she'd help us out with this pyramid ship problem that's coming our way. But the reality of the situation is Savathûn is...
Yeah, here's the bit I was talking about earlier. There's Shax there too, and Saint. Wow, whole team there, whole gang. What an array of voices.
Only on Savathûn's side. We've outlived our purpose, and it is to Savathûn's benefit to wipe us off that chessboard.
She's lived among us. She has played us for fools. She knows us inside and out. And she's been a step ahead of us, like, the whole way. So how do you beat someone like that?
It isn't too late. You can still be forgiven. Be careful. I'll hold you to it.
In order to beat Savathûn, you need to understand Savathûn.
Her throne world is a manifestation of Savathûn's own personality, which is, in Witch Queen, going through a transformation through the light.
Remember what Liz just said. Remember those words. They are going to be very important for the way that the entirety of the Throne World destination is structured, but I also imagine that remembering that is going to help lend context to the way that the world is literally both built in terms of its actual structure. So you can imagine that in the form of, say, statues like this, and also in the world-building moments of the actual world itself. So, for example, something that is a relic of darkness, like, say, a pyramid ship lost in the swamps being neglected and pushed to the side. That is a very important thing. Do note it. Remember it.
She has these areas that she's kind of trying to shun and push away. For the old hive areas, it's much more atmospheric, it's very dense, it's very claustrophobic, it's spooky. Then when you...
Again, exactly as was being pointed out. Old areas, neglected, pushed away. These are abandoned structures. They would have been reified and at least filled with hive at this moment in time. Now, they're left in the middle of a swamp, fetid, acrid, decayed, but not in the typical hive sense. Normally speaking, these ruins would be full of worshipping acolytes. Here, not so much.
Make your way into the Lucent hive area, it's a lot more open and broad. It's definitely brighter, it's definitely more lively. We want people to look at it like...
As a quick note, yeah, interesting look here at a bunch of hive ads. This is very reminiscent, this bit, of the Scarlet Keep and the entrance to the upper bounds of that. And I don't think that's by coincidence, because Savathûn was the one who planted the idea for the Scarlet Keep in the minds of Hashladûn and Besserith, who were the two daughters of Crota, both of which you kill in the Shadowkeep campaign. Hashladûn, of course, is the one that everyone remembers because she gets a strike, and the strike takes place partly in a location that looks very much like this. I don't think that's coincidence. I really do think that the idea might have been planted in their minds all the way down to the architecture. And if that is the case, man, Savathûn really is like 5 steps ahead of her brethren. Anyway.
We want people to look at it like an impressionist painting, something that's very pretty from far away, but as you get closer, it's not really what it seems. It's very unsettling.
You're looking at shapes, you're looking at these things within the world, and you're not entirely sure what they are, and you have to get close and you have to investigate.
What's really going to be exciting for players is that they're going to get to play that part of psychic detective, trying to solve the many mysteries of the throne world.
Can I just say, it's really cool to know that we have an actual red string corkboard in the game. Look at this. This is spectacular. You even have like links to the moths and to the throne world and to random crystal nonsense. It's fantastic. I love this. So good. I don't know if I can see anything of particular relevance on the board for all of this at current, but what I can definitely tell you is that you look at the moths and there is the connection immediately to Savathûn and the hive. Moths are a symbol of kind of rebirth and death, but by that same token, they've always been seen in places such as, say, just before Golgoroth's cellar, and they've been seen in the acrid air. They tend to accompany dying things. That's kind of the association they have with the hive. I don't know, maybe 9682 has some kind of relevance? I don't know. Some of these pictures I'm sure are going to be much more relevant. Is there something further along? Yeah, there we go. Using the magic of single frames, we can also tell there's little bits over here, and it tells you about the glaive and the top of the throne world with this bit here. Not sure if there's anything special about this symbol. I don't know, it's very kind of like light, fractally, traveller shape-esque. And yet also maybe it shares other architectural things. I don't know. We'll figure that out in time, I'm sure.
Witch Queen campaign, I think, is probably the most ambitious campaign we've made in a very long time.
We're building the Definitively Destiny campaign, so leaning into the journey you can find in exotic missions or the mechanics you might find in a dungeon.
You have to kind of think your way through. You have to figure out, like, hey, what do I need to do next in order to get to the end of this?
We've got Savathûn, right? The Queen of Lies, so...
I just wanted to point out something really cool here. Normally, all of these are going to show up with your very typical hive glyphs that we all know, and all of them have just spontaneously changed into the Savathûn symbol, which I think is this perfect analogy for the deception. Also, Catherine Walker with the awesome crow shoulder, for people who didn't notice. That was really cool. Sorry, totally not relevant to story and stuff.
Queen of Lies,
Cool.
so this campaign is full of surprises.
Savathûn has all these abilities, and you got to make sure that all of the abilities of the bosses would be something worthy of her. And as I kept thinking about this, I felt like I was really becoming Savathûn.
We've also added...
Okay, legendary campaign, as we know. This is also the first kind of look at the map of Savathûn's Throne World, where we can see some destinations. The Court of, I presume that's Thought? The Fluorescent Canal, the Quagmire, the Alluring Curtain, the Apothecary? Words are so hard today. Goodness gracious. There we go. The Enclave, which of course is on Mars, that's going to be the location for where we craft our weapons. It does appear the two are intrinsically linked, and I do believe that we're going to therefore access the Throne World through that ship above Mars somehow. Don't quote me on that, but it seems like that's the way. Also, this is kind of cool. Replayable missions. The campaign itself is replayable. That's nice. Is there any difference? Oh, they're both the same power level. But of course,
we've also added the legendary difficulty, which is called...
Ooh, something else. Are there new modifiers down here? I suppose that's the legendary difficulty one. Does this mean maybe loadout is locked? Unsure. Some of these we recognize from typical, these are going to be things like either empath or chaff. I'm not sure which one that is. More void damage adjustments, etc. Iron, meaning no staggering enemies. High caliber rounds don't do anything.
Become legend.
So yeah.
It's not for the faint of heart. It's going to be loaded with these moments that are...
Ooh, yeah, these enemies actually
loaded
have
with
a specific name too, don't they? Let's
not for the faint of heart. It's gonna be...
Let's get past the Merry Gentleman. Oh, okay, so some of these are clearly going to be work in progress names. Hive Trooper display name is not a very hivey name. It lacks some of that arcane finesse that Savathûn is known for, so that's quite something. I'm going to keep on looking out for other names, because I think there are others that...
loaded with these moments that are going to be frustrating, almost like teeth gnashing, but when you get through those encounters, you're going to feel like really accomplished.
Double rewards, yeah.
As people who have worked...
yeah, I thought this was going to be another one, but no, it's just Lucent Trooper display name. I saw this when I first watched the Vidoc, and I was like, oh, look, a long title on this hive. Clearly, this is someone who... Nope.
Done raids and dungeons before. Being able to broaden that experience for any kind of player who comes in is really important.
So this is a really weird one. This is very clearly one of the darkness type areas of the Throne World. This is a new kind of Scorn boss right here. You can tell because the headpiece is totally different and whatnot. So maybe there's a strike where we go ahead and fight someone who's of the Scorn faction. Would make sense considering that we've removed the Fanatic strike. And it's not been clear how many strikes there are.
If the Witch Queen is the psychic detective, fantasy and journey, then Season of the Risen is that same detective throwing on their flak jacket and defending Earth from the Hive Guardians and the Lucent Hive and Savathûn herself.
So, quick note here. These scenes are really cool, not just because all of a sudden a destination like the moon really is a lot more active. It's because the moon here is clearly being invaded by another brand of hive. This is something we've never seen before, and hive civil war of this type is genuinely new in the entire history of everything in Destiny. Savathûn has done something completely novel by taking the light here for herself. But then to go ahead and take it and to invade the Scarlet Keep, to go ahead and actually go against all of the foundational wishes of the Hive and flaunt that openly in the system, man, that's going to be so
that same detective throwing on their flak jacket and defending Earth from the Hive Guardians and the Lucent Hive and Savathûn herself.
When Savathûn shows up on our doorstep with the light, the first person to lend us help is Cabal.
You want us to hit them?
I need us to hit them.
She's got this light suppressing technology that the Cabal were using in Season of the Chosen, and now she's going to help us use that against the Lucent Hive.
Now you see, that's a really cool payoff for some of the story that we got in Season of the Chosen. I did wonder where that might be ending up, and that's a really satisfying conclusion for all of this, and I do believe it yet again also has the bigger political implications of moving us and the Cabal closer together as a coherent.
You're working with Kaya Tal.
So that's really
She has a
good.
different
Awesome
approach.
stuff.
It's not about.
I'm not going to ask Joe about his pronunciation of Keitel. Let's just say that in Dynasty upcoming, I'm pretty sure I pronounced Ecumene wrong. Let's not go for it there. There may have been a thing where I had to re-record every single line. Because previously we pronounced it Ecumene, and then there was discussion as to whether it was Ecumene or Ecumene, but it was actually pointed out that it is indeed Ecumene. Anyway, it's a whole thing. Point being, I'm not going to get into that, because that's a trap. What I am going to get into is this. This looks like a pyramid-type structure here. So I believe that might be the exterior of the Enclave, if that's the case. What this is, I don't know. It looks like a giant Cabal structure, considering the note of what's been spoken of in that particular moment. I imagine that's the case. I mean, it's being carried from the underside of a Cabal command carrier. So, yeah, I don't see why not. Maybe it's just a big old gun. It certainly looks like a big old gun, and if it is a big old gun, cool.
She has a different approach.
Big
it's not
old
about
guns
asking
are cool.
questions. It's about getting in there and extracting.
We don't really understand what.
So this is a really cool element that we get to play with here. First of all, the Scions like this have a unique asymmetry to their power, which is shown not only when they fight us, but also clearly here where they're doing something with these Hive Guardians. There is a degree to which Scions can potentially be as powerful, if not more powerful in some ways, than Lightbearers, of both evil and good flavors. Which is a really weird distinction to have to go ahead and make now. The point is, this is a really interesting lead-in for the season, because not only does it lead us to this place where we can learn more about the Lucent Brood, but also it means that we can get a deeper story regarding the Scions. And remember, the Scions have their own internal motives. They have their own reasons to do things, and not all of them are loyal to Keitel and the Cabal proper. There is an entire split between them and their Conclave faction. I believe it's the Conclave. Maybe it's... I can't remember. I believe it is the Conclave. Either way, there is this entire faction of Scions that just wants Guardians dead. And if that's the case, watch out, maybe this is the lead-in that leads us to the next season. And if that is the case...
And what happened
awesome.
when Savathûn actually was able to take the light. So the campaign in Season of the Risen in many ways is about that story. Guardians need to stop Savathûn's advance beyond the throne world. And Savathûn poses an existential threat to everyone because...
I actually wanted to go ahead and take a look at this real quick, because I don't know where this area is. It certainly looks like the EDZ, but there's a bunch of Hive nonsense that's fallen all over the place, and yeah, I don't know what's going on here. Maybe this is... yeah, look, I mean, there's EDZ-esque structures here, but there's also Hive ones. Maybe this is as a result of Savathûn invading the system. It's not clear. But if it is a big shake-up of the world like this, then that would be awesome. My best guess, this may be the hidden or haunted forest in the EDZ. And this could be the sludge, which is that bit that's just around it, where you get the Taken Blight public event. If so, this is going to be
an
a
existential
really
threat to
take
everyone, because she basically has an undead army.
In fighting the Lucent Brood, this isn't our first time in the game fighting other Lightbearers, but it is the first time that we'll be facing other Lightbearers that have much more relentless motives.
When you look at these Hive Guardians and when they do their ability...
Can we just get a moment to appreciate the man, the myth, the legend, the Dave Samuels
abilities, you immediately make that connection like, oh, they are using my powers against me. As soon as we see the Knight pop its super and it has 2 shields, you immediately are like, oh yeah, I see that connection. And then it's like, and then you're like, it hits you with those things and then you're dead. And it's just an amazing experience.
The Guardians themselves kind of feel like a fire team that you're fighting against. You got every class represented.
The Acolyte, when that character casts, does very similar thing as the player, like the Arc Wizard. The sparks go out, it's ready to go. If you're not smart about it, if you're not paying attention, you are...
I didn't actually see that the first time round, but that poor hunter...
Smart about it if you're not paying attention.
Oh my god, can we see that again real quick? Oh my god.
If you're not paying attention...
Sorry, there's something about that that's just hilarious to me. It's just like... Bonk! Okay.
You are essentially going to have to play that fight over again.
If you're successful in taking down one of these hive units that are wielding the light, you actually have to go up and kill their ghosts.
That was like one of my favorite things that we were able to do in this game, is just that moment where you crush the ghost.
It's kind of this moral dilemma. A ghost is your companion, and now suddenly you have one in your hand and you're about to crush it.
The first time it happens, you're like looking at your hand like, I can't believe what I've just done. Am I doing this? Should I be doing this?
I have a ghost.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
What
Like,
is going
So there's actually a lot of discussion around that moral dilemma. But more importantly, I'm going to give everyone a secondary spoiler alert if you don't want to think about some things that are raised in the Collector's Edition of Witch Queen. So I'm going to give everyone a moment to file out for that. We good? Okay, cool. So, in the Collector's Edition of Witch Queen, there is actually a little bit of discussion about the morality and morale of ghosts generally. And there's a lot of discussion about the fact that they can independently make their own moral decisions. The idea that ghosts can be corrupted. This very much feeds into that theme. It's very much playing on that same trope. So it's definitely something worth looking at and definitely something worth remembering and thinking about. I can imagine this is not the last time we'll be hearing about
Savathûn and her Lucent Brood are the most dangerous enemies we've faced so far. And so we're going to need better, more powerful weapons and tools to fight against that threat.
We did a bunch of work early on looking at various different types of weapons we could add to the sandbox.
We wanted to introduce a special weapon archetype that was effective more at a middle range, but also had these kind of additional roles associated with it. The Glaive is a projectile weapon, and it is a shield, and it's a melee weapon. We wanted to keep that experience in first person. It has an immediacy that you don't really get when you're using a sword because the camera is so much further back. Because this is also a projectile weapon with a slower moving projectile, the onus of skill on aiming these weapons is about leading and compensating for the speed of the projectile and anticipating that. If you're in a
I've just got to say this, it's totally unrelated to anything to do with lore or story or anything, but just, like, these motions with the Glaive.
We wanted to keep that experience in first person. It has an immediacy that you don't really get when you're using a sword because the camera is so much further back. Because this is also a...
I get the kind of the vibe that if you were looking at like a first-person version of Ghosts of Tsushima, this is exactly what that would feel like. Because that's awesome. That's so cool. Just, yeah, wow. Just, yeah, sorry, I can't get over that. Little bit.
Really difficult encounter, and one of your teammates dies somewhere out in the open where you normally wouldn't be able to get to them. You can bring that shield up and actually get the revive and then fall back. Glaives originate with Savathûn trying to steal an extremely powerful weapon for her own use, and players will use the weapon crafting recipes that they find throughout the campaign in order to reconstruct this incredibly powerful and incredibly ancient weapon.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and let you know that I have no clue what the incredibly powerful and incredibly ancient weapon that they're talking about is. I'm going to tell you, for starters, that I do not believe it to be the touch of malice, just in case anybody had that idea. What I do think our biggest hint to that weapon and its sources is this thing here. I have suspicions, based on the fact that the glaive itself is something that looks suspiciously like the swords that we would get from back in the Taken King, and in particular it looks a little bit like a segmented combination of Raise Lighter and Bolt Caster. If you go ahead, let's see if we can find a good picture with the glaive. Maybe up close. Because, yeah, there is indeed a thing here where we will be able to see it. Yeah, it's got this.
We wanted to keep that experience in first person.
It's very much sort of just segmented. Yeah, it's very hard to actually get a decent angle on it. But the glaive itself looks a little bit like that. And this chunk of metal that we seem to have recovered right here, that we then go ahead and place into the thing, I have no clue what's going on with that. But if it's maintaining similar kind of properties to everything that we saw with Boltcaster, Raise Lighter, and Dark Drinker, the three swords from the Taken King, then maybe we're looking at this being made of hadium. I don't know if that's the case, but this is my best guess. For those of you who don't know, hadium is basically an ancient material that is found not within our physical plane or our solar system. The only place we found it was on the Dreadnought back in the Taken King, and the reason it was only found on the Dreadnought was because it connected into Oryx's throne world. Hadium is a metal that has really special properties. Namely, it's basically like, how do I best put it? It emulates the energy of whatever's around it. On the Dreadnought, the hadium that we find isn't balanced. It's filled with Oryx's dark energy because that's what it's emulating. It's like a conduit for that dark energy. It catalyzes around whatever it's around. And so part of our quest is to actually take that hadium and to refine it and purify it. And we do that with motes of light, literally adding light to darkness to balance out that energy. And so maybe this is a bit of hadium that's been recovered. That's my best guess. I don't know what it is. If we're looking at ancient weapons, the best guesses I have are the various weapons of the other Hive gods. If this is another fragment or some kind of shard of Willbreaker, Oryx's sword, maybe that makes some sense. Maybe there's another even more ancient
to reconstruct this incredibly powerful and incredibly ancient weapon.
Exciting stuff.
When you put together your glaive in the campaign, you just get a taste that that's what you want to do for the rest of the weapons that you get.
Weapon crafting lets you target a specific role and go and build that, and you know how long it's going to take you to get there, and you get exactly the thing that you want.
I really want to see what people do with it and like the feedback that we're gonna get.
Just as a quick note, and for those of you who wanted to look at weapon crafting and what it was going to be, some awesome looks at you for weapon crafting. And just as a quick note, some of you may be looking at this and realizing you've not seen this before. Some of you who are veteran players to D2 Year 1 will remember this from the Trials of the 9 weapons. This, I believe, is a perk called Swap Mag. I'm not 100% sure. I feel like it will have been changed this time around. And the reason I say that is because Swap Mag effectively got replaced by Quick Access Sling in the mods section. So I imagine that this is just using the same perk icon and doing something new. Either way, this shows you how the mod crafting system for all of this works, and that's awesome. Also, we get to go ahead and take a look at a few things. We have the Enigma, which is the glaive, a void glaive at that. We can also see the various stats that it has. Impact, range, shield duration, which I imagine is going to be an important one, magazine, RPM, reload speed, handling. It very much has that mix of both gun and ranged weapon and something in between going on with it.
And
also,
people sharing
see if I can actually get the full description of this on screen, because this is something to look at. A weapon forged from an ancient memory purpose-built for your hand. Also, cool, we have a look at some other perks. We got some ones that we clearly know and love, things like Feeding Frenzy, Threat Detector, Impulse Amplifier, Grave Robber, Subsistence. Grave Robber again. This looks like an enhanced version of Grave Robber versus this, an enhanced version of Impulse Amplifier. I'm not sure what's going on with those. Now that I look at that, yeah, there's repeated versions for a bunch of these perks. And then there's this, which looks to be a whole new trait. Obviously, these are going to be the sights on the Glaive, which are going to be completely new and bespoke because the Glaive is a new kind of weapon. So it's not going to have your typical
the things that they're doing with that new system.
Type stuff. Yeah, no, this is totally new. What we can tell is apparently that Glaives get a kill clip, which is going to be quite exciting, I'm sure. And there you go, take a look at that. This is actually the perfect description. You see how that blade on the end of it does look a little bit like a combination of Raise Lighter and Boltcaster? It's got these lines down it, which is very Boltcaster-esque, but the overall shape is very Raise Lighter-esque. Yeah, it's very good. And then, of course, it's a Void Sword, just to make everything more confusing. Also, we have the description of Adaptive Glaives. Hybrid melee ranged polearm with a frontal shield to generate energy on dealing ranged damage. Press left trigger to raise the shield, depletes energy over time. Right bumper is a kinetic melee combo. So that's really exciting. Whatever this is, I believe is probably going to be one of the new origin traits, which can be found on weapons now. And that's going to give you a specific series of bonuses according to the origin of the weapon, whether it's Trials or Vanguard or Throne World or Raid or something in between. So yeah, that's really exciting stuff. Also, just in case,
you're creating your guardian, and you want to be able to shape your guardian into what you want them to be. And this gives us a great opportunity to continue to do that.
This is a really big season for weapons in particular. We've got
oh no. Oh no. Oh, I can't remember what it is that the gang calls the hive worms. I want to say it's Reginald. It's definitely not Reginald. Raymond, there we go. Poor Raymond. That's Parasite, the grenade launcher that shoots hive worms. I mean, the hive worms are not actually baby hive. They're evil parasitic worms.
got 8 brand new exotics.
I'm sorry, buddy. What's gonna happen?
The Osteostriga exotic submachine gun. This is something.
See, I told you. Ooh, so take a look at this. Osteostriga, which we get the confirmed pronunciation on that, thank God, I wasn't too far off. Secondly, 600 RPM SMG, so it's going to be a little bit like your old anti-OPs from way back in the day. That is going to be... yeah, quite exciting. You have all the different traits on this. Looks like this is something that's very, very stable. But of course, considering that this is in weapon crafting, and considering that some of the weapons are more about tuning the exotics, you may be able to go ahead and choose to go ahead and throw these on. So polygonal and steady rounds here is going to make for a very steady, stable weapon, but I imagine there's a possibility of putting hammer-forged rifling and, say, accurized rounds on this for something that has a lot more range. I'm guessing these exotic perks and the main trait here isn't going to change, but you may be able to edit these up in a similar way to how we can with Dead Man's Tale. Also, lore-wise, the important thing, victory is not in the unmaking of an enemy, but in the remaking of an enemy into your blade. The Ninth Understanding, 7th Revision of Sorrow. Now tell me if that doesn't remind you of Touch of Malice, or Whisper of the Worm, or Black Spindle, or any time when we've taken a god and made them into a gun. That to me says it all, honestly. You're sitting there and I think you've got this amazing moment of saying like, hey, I know exactly what I'm doing, and what I'm doing is taking my adversary here and just turning them into a weapon. Because that's what we Guardians do now. The Ninth Understanding, 7th Revision of Sorrow is a very clear reference to the Books of Sorrow and to the way that the Books of Sorrow were kind of maladapted by Dredgens. And in particular, this is very reminiscent of the description, of course, on Thorn, which says something along the lines of... God, I can't remember exactly, but the ending of it is something along the lines of the Ninth Understanding, the 7th Book of Sorrow. I'll need to get the exact one for that. I can't believe I can't remember it in this moment. It's a very bad lore moment of me. I'm sure someone is going to quote it down below in the comments section, and if that's the case, thank you to them in advance. Anyway, point being, commentary is made later in the trailer. This is very much in that moment, kind of replicating a Book of Sorrow kind of thing. a weapon of sorrow kind of thing. So yeah, this makes a whole lot of sense. Also, this structure looks like a darkness structure where we do all this weapon crafting, and it's very telling that when you pick the final thing, you choose to finalize the
Which Guardians have made, but it's modeled after weapons of sorrow, like Thorn and Touch of Malice. Fires swarms of tiny homing projectiles that land on a target and then explode in this poison burst. We have an exotic machine gun where the whole idea is be the Colossus. You can launch a barrage of up to 20 homing missiles.
It's a comical amount of projectiles on the screen.
Just look at how stupid this looks. It's wonderful.
A comical amount of projectiles on the screen.
It's just silly. Like, look at this. You can see how massive the bullets are as they leave the gun. Look at that. Look at those. That makes like a 40k bolter round blush. It's just fired a ton of those.
We're doing an exotic glaive
really
for each class this time, and the exotic perks tie deeply into the mechanics of the classes. We think they're going to be really cool additions to build crafting. We've got, you know, the usual suite of raid weapons, destination, activities.
So yeah, look through all of these. There's some really interesting ones to be noted here. In particular, yeah, sure, you've got the new Omolon hand cannon with kind of a Crucible Raymond coloring scheme up front. These look like weapons that have been very specifically taken and adapted for Keitel's side of things.
Seasonal. Recounted at this
them. So I imagine these are going to be the seasonal weapons. I'm going to pause again a few more times like this. Oh. So for starters, new Viced sidearm, which I don't think we've had in years. If I'm not mistaken, that's an Omolon fusion rifle. And also, there we go. Seasonal grenade launcher by the looks of things. Another one in the tube. I'm hoping this is finally going to be the arc grenade launcher that we've all been waiting for. Because we have a solar one in the form of the Empty Vessel. We have Truth Teller for Void. We have a kinetic one in terms of Pardon Our Dust. And we are missing an arc one, so maybe we'll be getting that. Who knows?
This morning, I think it's about 50 new weapons.
Will just forever remain never having a grenade launcher option. We'll see. Also, all of these, all Throne World weapons. From best I can tell, you're looking at a... oh, maybe that's not a Throne World weapon. That looks like an Omolon type grenade launcher. Anyway, grenade launcher, sidearm. Potentially, that's actually... I think that's the auto rifle that we saw earlier, SMG. This, by the fact that it looks a little bit closer to...
You're going to have 2 new exotic armors for each class, totaling 6, 1 stasis, 1 non-stasis. The Titan stasis exotic. Cast your barricade, and instead of, this Traveler's Light and the Rally Barricade, you create a giant wall of ice. Even though this thing is massive, you still get all the benefits of a Rally Barricade.
Can I just say as well, that's really cool to know, because that's actually a worthwhile exotic worth taking then, because, yeah, losing the benefits of a barricade and gaining the benefits of a rally barricade, plus these things you can hide behind, is really awesome. Plus, remember that it stacks with things like Whispers of Chains, which will then go ahead and give you damage reduction, and if you slide through it as a item,
Warlock Void exotic, we called them the Devouring
Rift. A bunch of overshield. So that's nice. These
Rift legs so because we wanted Empowering Rift to feel like it had a place in endgame content the way that Healing Rift does. Empowering Rift doesn't heal you, well, what if it did?
It's a very simple idea, but I think a very well executed one if it can give Empowering Rift that place. And also, you'll notice this is something that's going to come up in a second.
Season 16, you're going to see a massive revamp to the Void subclass system across all 3 classes. This is a huge update and will allow players to build craft in ways that they've never done before.
One of the things we wanted to do is
3 classes. This is a huge update and will allow
I'll just go ahead and give you a
players to build
those different fragments. There we are. So first of all, Echo of Exchange, melee final blows, grant grenade energy. I can imagine that for Titans in particular, there are some really strong synergies
Buildcraft
there,
in ways that
maybe
they've never...
too, depending on what melees look like on that one. I don't know. We'll have to go ahead and see. The Echo of Remnants, your lingering grenade effects, Vortex Grenade, Void Wall, Void Spike, and Axion Bolts all have increased duration. By the way, quick reminder, take a look up here. We're on the Warlock, so they have Blink as well as all 3 jumps. You can also see that they still retain extra nodes on their super here, which tells me that we still get to keep all the supers. So we've not lost a super here, which is fantastic stuff. Also, 7 grenades. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 scatter grenades, because they've confirmed that all the different grenades in the Void subclass can be used across every class. Every class can use a suppressor grenade, is the example they gave us. Final blows when surrounded by combatants grant grenade or grenade energy? Grant super energy. This one is very much an interesting one, and I can imagine that this plays into something like, say, a Devour style, some kind of Punch Titan with the Overshield, or maybe a Stealth Hunter. I imagine that with Stealth Hunters...
One of the things we wanted to do is create a core set of verbs, like we did with...
I'd love to see how people actually end up using this. Ah, yes. And we've got the aspects for the Voidwalker at very least. Sorry, Hunters and Titans, they don't actually show that off, but DMG has actually confirmed in a Twitter post that they will be showing off some stuff that Hunters and Titans will be able to do at a later date. Because I know they also do mention something that Titans can get, I think, as an aspect for one of these, which is basically they slam their shield into the ground, create a rally barricade, and it gives overshield to nearby players as well as all the benefits. In the meantime, Chaos Accelerant. Take a look at this. You basically have the overcharge thing that you had before. You know? This is something that now applies to more than just the typical 3 grenades we had earlier. You have things like Magnetic Grenade, releasing a short-range Void Blast. I'd be really interested to see if there are more grenades to which this applies, because there are some very interesting combos that might be going on there. Imagine a Suppressor Grenade that just lasts for longer and keeps the enemy powered down or has a massive radius increase. Imagine a Spike Grenade, which instead of being a single pillar of void light shooting out is instead a massive fan, so it covers a bigger area, stuff like that. That could make this a very, very powerful fragment,
Stasis.
as it seems to already be, given that it costs quite a lot in terms of the remaining fragments that you get. You only get 1 fragment with this aspect. And then by far the coolest named of the aspects that we've seen in the entire game, I'm just going to say it, Child of the Old Gods. In the deepest reaches, a pact made between unknowable entities created something from nothing. It lives on. This is kind of what I was talking about when I talked about how Empowering Rift gives you a little something extra. Let's take a look at this. Cast your Rift to create a Void Soul. When you damage a target with a weapon, your Void Soul flies to them and drains them, doing damage and weakening them. So this is a debuff, and that's excellent. But more importantly, when a target is being drained, you are granted grenade and melee energy if running a healing rift, or health if running an empowering rift. So on a kill, this acts again into that feeding you back HP mechanic that you had with the Warlock exotic, so you can very much build into that and double down on it. You can deal a lot of big damage using Empowering Rift, and you can very much feed the Void like that without having to spec into Devour. More importantly, perhaps, if you're sitting there and actually running this in endgame, it gives you options here, because you have chances for either. Also, defeating a target who's being drained by your Void Soul grants you class ability energy, so it feeds into the entire Warlock, Voidwalker.
I think that's the pretty cool thing.
I'm going to be running Suppressor Grenade for
much like fantasy of playing a particular class. A small but important confirmation there.
We wanted you to feel like you were the energy vampire, feel like you were the Night Stalker, feel like you were that.
Is going to be a very popular subclass choice. Small note as well, this melee ability here is new. I don't know if we've ever seen something like this on Warlocks, because maybe this is a change of animation, but Middle Tree Voidwalker's melee was never quite like this.
The Night Stalker.
And there's no
feel like you were that
ability
protector,
matches
that big
this. This is
sentinel
not
titan.
Chaos Accelerator.
So you're going to see
Go
things.
ahead and you charge up your grenade and then just throw it out there. This is different.
Like Bastion, a new Titan aspect, where you take your big old sentinel
Also,
shield,
again,
slam it into the ground, and create this void barricade that's going to apply overshield to you and your buddies.
Yeah, so
my favorite aspect is probably Child of the Old Gods. As this warlock controlling space and time, I'm able to rip a hole into another dimension and then pull out this little like sentient black hole. Whenever I target an enemy, my little black hole buddy is gonna fly over there and start draining their life force.
The Void 3.0 update is really setting the stage for how we're thinking about updating the subclasses for the rest of the year.
We're going to extend this philosophy to Solar and Arc. Solar obviously is going to be about burning, but there's this other component to Solar, and that's healing. Arc is all about chaining. It's all about lightning, direct attacks, quickness. We're going to take the fantasies that you know and love today. We're going to embellish them. So what you'll see is like all of the new abilities, all the new actions you take, reinforce that to the core.
It's really good to hear the team talk about those core fantasies and the core identities of the other two element types as well, be that both Solar and Arc. Because of course, those are very key parts of playing these subclasses. I myself am Middle Tree Warlock on Solar almost all of the time, and as was stated, Solar is very much about both burning and healing is epitomized by Middle Tree Solar, what with Well of Radiance, what with Benevolent Dawn giving you your abilities back constantly, and what with the ability to throw healing grenades, and to use your Healing Rift, and to synergize with exotics such as the new exotic Warlock Glaive, and Lumina, and Boots of the Assembler, and Seekers that could be either noble rounds fired from Lumina or from the Assembler boots. These are all really cool, and honestly it's just really great to hear that those fantasies are being doubled down on. Gives me a lot more confidence too when you go ahead and you look at stuff like this, which indicates again, because it changes here, you can indeed choose the super. This is the icon for the super, and in this notion here, notice that this square is grayed out, and notice that the other one over here in the middle, this middle one is grayed out, which indicates there's a choice being made here, just like with these nodes. So yeah, it's really good to see these choices are being reflected and made, and that we are still going to keep the diversity of our subclasses as we know them, but it probably is going to get a little bit deeper.
Bastion, a new Titan aspect where you take your
update is really setting the stage for how we're thinking about updating the subclasses for the rest of the year.
We're going to extend this philosophy to Solar and Arc. Solar, obviously know and love today. We're going to embellish them. So what you'll see is like all of the new abilities, all the new actions you take, reinforce that to the core. Pretty excited about it.
Witch Queen is very much the culmination of the last 6 to 7 years of just Destiny altogether. And really, this is starting the road to the final showdown. But things aren't necessarily just dark and light anymore. There's a lot more nuance in the game.
It's going to be a real fight. Players have something that they're really going to be challenged by.
I can't wait for everyone to find out what's been going on with Savathûn. Like, I'm excited.
You Guardians are so clever, aren't you?
From the throne world to the
I don't know what this terrifying giant flash of light up here represents.
From the throne world to the campaign to the customizable build crafting, it all comes together to make Destiny feel really new and fresh.
We've got more Destiny coming this year than any other year before. It's one of the most ambitious releases we've ever put together, and the team is firing on all cylinders.
Tell me, Guardian, what do you think you're going to do?
And there you have it. that is the Witch Queen Vidoc that was just released. So thank you for sticking with me for an entire hour's worth of analysis. I'm literally clocking in the audio as we're finishing this. An unedited raw, it's just got to an hour or so long. That will obviously be a tiny bit shorter in the actual video, but either way, thank you very much for watching. If you're looking forward to more Witch Queen content, go ahead and stick around on the channel. I don't know if this is going to drop on the same day. It will be something I'll be able to figure out in 30 minutes time from when I'm recording the video if it is the case, but it may be the case that the final bit of the Witch Queen story is dropping today. Not the Witch Queen story, rather the Season of the Lost story. If that is the case, awesome! I'm going to be playing through that with some people, and I'm going to get you an analysis and review of that in the next few days. And it's going to hopefully be a really big stepping off point into the final shape. So that's really exciting. Into the final shape, into Witch Queen. Wow, I need to save myself. I've been recording for an hour and I can't think straight. Anyway, yeah, thank you very much for watching. You can expect that content coming soon. Warframe video tomorrow, very exciting stuff going on. I will see you all very soon, but in the meantime, my name is Bife, Rodacia ad Astra. I'll see you Starside.